Welcome to Leadership Development News, Profiles and Practices of Top Performers. I'm Dr. Roy Nadler. Dr. Kathy Greenberg, my esteemed host, Kathy and I have been doing this now. We're going on our 20th year, so we're going to do some kind of celebrations. Kathy, I don't know what we're going to do, but I think we'll have to come up with some things for 20 years, providing you tools, tips to be a top performer. Today, we're going to talk about level up your leadership, becoming more conscious, courageous, and resilient with Deborah Naish. And so this is a book. I know Deborah, she's been working very, very hard on this through the years. She's got some great experience. So we're really excited to bring her on and talk about her book. And first, I want to bring Kat, you on and welcome you.
You want to welcome me?
Yes, welcome to the show. I know I can see you taking
I
some notes and getting ready because you're prepared.
my brain, whenever we do this show, and I just think about 20 years.
Uh,
Years. Most people have this concept that 20 years is such a short period of time. It's 2 decades.
yeah.
That's a long time to spend with somebody who I call my mentor, my work husband, my emotional intelligence bestie, the person who
Okay,
I
that's enough.
admire. And yeah, no, it's really funny. I've made this 20th year of us together to be making sure, for whatever reason and whatever audience I'm in, that people know who Relly Nadler is and why he is so important to me.
Hmm.
So today, if I'm overdoing it, you'll have to forgive me. But I think it's important that we acknowledge those people in our lives
Yeah,
who have contributed to who we are.
yes. Well, and I think, Kat, you and I are up on all the current research, and we'll hear also from Deborah about that. But as we get older, it's these key relationships that are really important. Sometimes people have said, you are a product of the top 5 people that you're around the most. So many times that's our families, significant others, partners, but our work partners, as Kat, you and I are. So I'm really happy to be say I'm a work partner and a good friend, and you're a great friend of mine for 20 years. So we'll have plenty more time for us to talk about this. We're gonna get
Yeah, we want to talk to Deborah.
Yeah, we want to talk to Deborah. So let me just say a couple of different words. We're talking to Deborah because we like bringing on people who are experts in what they do. They've either written books, they're coaches, and we have questions that we want to ask them. What are the key things that have allowed them or allowed them to help others to be top performers? Kathy and I are very in tune with emotional intelligence and promote it. We're both certified in emotional quotient inventory and other EI assessments that you can assess your emotional intelligence. But the key is, what do you do in the moment? How do you bring up some of those competencies? So I'm going to just tell you about Deborah Naish here. And she brings 40 years of leadership experience, 25 of them as an executive coach. And that's about up near where we are as far as coaching goes. And she's been guiding leaders to embrace growth, navigate change, and inspire those around them to thrive. She partners with executives in Fortune 500 companies, fast-growing startups, and dynamic nonprofits, helping them elevate their influence, renew their energy, and lead with greater clarity and courage. She is a founder of Naish Partners, and we're going to talk about her book, Level Up Your Leadership, Becoming More Conscious. Who doesn't want that? Becoming more courageous. Who doesn't want that? Becoming more resilient. Who doesn't want that? And it just came out September 17th. So we're really in the first couple of weeks. And we're going to really talk about some of the things in her book around mastering some of these essentials. What are some of the core questions, and adapting some of these foundational practices that she's put to use. So Deborah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to show, for those who are on video, I'm just going to show a copy
Oh, that
of
looks
the book.
good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's pretty exciting to have
It
it.
is exciting. And thank you for sending a copy. That was really very kind of you. How
Great.
did you come up with this career, and who influenced who you are today, Deborah? Just, we like to start off with a little bit of insight on that to give our audience just a little bit of a hint about who made you who you are.
Hmm. Good question. So I'll tell you the quick story of how I became a coach. So I had been working for 15 years in corporate world. I worked for the Clorox company in marketing, Kingsford Charcoal and Hidden Valley Ranch salad dressing, and then on some new products. And then I worked for the Walt Disney Company. I got to be there when uh, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin had come out. They weren't classics yet, but so that was in 2005, 2003. And then I was at a startup toy company and CEO of a publishing and licensing company. In 1997, I left my CEO role, and a couple of friends asked me to help them. And at that point, they were small business owners, and they asked me to come and help them look at growing their business and some other strategy. And what I realized was that they really couldn't grow their business until they looked at who they were as leaders.
Hmm.
So it's 1997, and coaching hasn't even really taken off yet. You both know that. And that's how I got into coaching, and I've been able to be a part of it ever since. Love the work that I do. And some of the key influences or influencers I was thinking about, um, Peter Senge, kind of before I even got into coaching, Tom
Wow.
Peters, kind of early on. So that's when I was still corporate work. And then on the coaching side, some of my prime people are Brene Brown and Dare to Lead, her book and all her other books. Tara Moore, author of Playing Big, is a big one. And a couple other just miscellaneous books, but those would be my main people.
Fantastic. Nope, no Peter Senge. From all of my work at Accenture, we used to work with Peter.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
good
Great.
guy,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think for our listeners, I've said this a lot in the coaching school, college of executive coaching, where both Kat and I are faculty. The fifth discipline and the fifth discipline field book are, I would say, similar to Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, meaning like
Another one.
you just have to have that as a foundation. And I
Yes.
think Senge's not out there as much these days as he was then, but really a mover and a shaker.
That foundational pieces, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you've coached Fortune 500 startups, nonprofits, across these different environments. What are some of the common challenges that leaders have?
Yeah, thanks. I think that you'll see if these are the same for you, but overwhelm today is a
Mm,
big one. Decision complexity, the fact that it's things are not straightforward anymore, that there's really a lot of different people involved. People don't even always know what they're making a decision about. The fact that change has just become a constant
yeah.
and living with more uncertainty. People seem to have more to do than they have the resources for. A lot of times roles are not clear and they have just too many priorities. And therefore, that whole too many means you don't have any. So, and the other piece I see is a tendency to act, to put out fires before they clarify their role, before they're really clear about what should they be doing. Wondering what you see. Is that similar to what you're finding in the work you're doing?
It certainly is for me. And just to clarify for our audience, once again, if you have not been listening to us for the last 20 years, and to also clarify for you, Deborah. So I started off in the corporate world. I was a partner, senior partner at Accenture. And prior to that, Computer Sciences Corporation. I'm a organizational methodologist. And when I left there, I started really donating my time to the Department of Defense, Pentagon,
Mhm.
Special Forces, Special Operations, CIA, FBI, and all the other alphabet soup. So from the same vantage point that you just described, uncertainty, overwhelm, decision complexity, and change is a constant. They are dealing with the same exact issues,
Yeah.
but it is tenfold
Mm,
because human life
right.
is the priority of life. And
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting that as you're talking about, coaching across your beautiful history with Fortune 500 companies and huge international brands, Clorox and Hidden Valley Ranch and Walt Disney, right? People tend, and no offense to our audience, but they tend to manifest because of the way our brain is organized, an idea that something is more threatening than it is because the brain is hardwired for hard times
Mhm.
and we look for what's wrong in order to survive. In my world, it is real. People are not looking at what's wrong out of a need for profit growth or quarterly numbers or target goals. It's because if they do focus on the wrong thing, somebody is going to get seriously injured
Right.
or loss of life. So yes, my world, yes, tenfold, 100-fold.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I actually think what you're saying is important in the worlds that are not the worlds that you're playing in, because people tend to make things more important than they
Yeah.
are. And that's part of what produces the anxiety and the stress. If
Yeah.
there was just a way to be a little bit lighter about it and recognize it's not necessarily life and death, but that isn't how many people live and
Yeah.
operate.
And,
Really, you're
and I think
smiling, you're connecting to that.
but that's good for us to connect because Kat, you are in that special world because I talk about another big influence for me is Daniel Kahneman's work, Thinking Fast or Slow, and he says, and I say, we need more time to think slow. Um, and he says we only do it 2% of the time. Do we need more time to think fast? No, except if you're with the population of law enforcement and government and the military that those folks, yeah, gotta think fast. And I think for most of us, that's not us, but that the same thing kind of holds. So let me ask you, Deborah, you've been called the CEO whisperer.
I
Like
love that. Oh,
who gave you that who gave you that name? And then what does that actually mean?
Yeah, it was kind of fun. So great. So Jessica Rolfe, who has been a client since for 20 years, almost 20 years, 2006. And she had started a company. She was just starting a company at that time called Happy Family Brands. It was
Oh,
started out as baby food and then toddler food, all organic. They were the first ones. Might remember, the pouches. Do you know the kids that do the pouches? They're the
I
first
know
ones that came out
now.
with, and you know
Mhm,
the name.
mhm.
So I started working with her when they were finalizing their business plan, and I've been working with her ever since. That company she built up, she was co-founder. She built that up, and they sold it to Groupe Danone, the company that makes Dannon yogurt,
oh
international
yeah,
company. It's an international
that's right.
company, still going strong. And then she started another company, a fabulous company called Love Every, which is for age-based, age-appropriate toys for children starting from birth to age 7, and super amazing. So if you have anybody in that age range in your life, you want to check it out, called Love Every. So I've been working with Jessica through both of these companies, and she said, call me her CEO whisperer. And it brings to mind, we've heard of the horse whisperer, someone about being intuitive and connecting with the horse without words. And that's where I think the name came from. And I know it's used by other coaches, as well. I have been called CEO whisperer, but that intuitive connection, listen beyond the words, build that trust and confidentiality. And a lot of coaches either start out or get to this place with their clients. And I feel blessed to have the opportunity to be that coach, but also a mentor and strategic thought partner with my clients and help them get to their next level.
There's such a level of genuine compassion when you
Yes.
describe yourself, Deborah, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
When you think of some of the behaviors and character traits that you write about in your book, you write about many things, and I may be jumping ahead here, but curiosity. You talk about curiosity as a major theme, and talk a little bit about what you've seen in your work that makes it so critical.
Yes. Curiosity is one of what I call leadership essentials. I talk about awareness, curiosity, and acceptance as three basics. And one of the premises of my book is that we have to get better at the basics. And emotional intelligence is all about that as well. It's about awareness and being better at that. And so on curiosity, most people overall like really know it's a good idea to be curious. Brene Brown's just come out with her new book called Strong Ground, and she explores curiosity more and why that's important. Curiosity opens spaces, it reduces judgment, it sparks innovation, it uncovers blind spots. It's a way to engage with resistance, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But most of us are not as curious as we could be. And most people actually kind of know that. And that's was my observation and why it became an essential in my book. I'll tell you a quick story. So a client, Joe, and this is similar for a lot of situations, when he's engaging with team members, they're in a group, he has a tendency to say, I already know, sort of be dismissive, to not even ask a question about how did they get there? What are they thinking? And that shuts people down, as we know, and limits what's possible. So that ability to listen more versus jumping in, ask questions, things like, how would that work? Tell me more of what you're thinking. And checking your assumptions is kind of key. We immediately jump to what we assume someone's talking about versus
Yeah.
exploring assumptions. Once he started doing those three things, ask more questions, listen more deeply, check assumptions, things shifted in the team. It's
Uh-huh.
simple, not easy, but practices that everybody can do.
So it's so important, and I like that you have it as essentials and it's simple, and I think it allows this brain of ours to not jump to conclusions, and some of those conclusions are judgments,
Yep.
and they're just wrong. And so somebody kind of quickly out of the block will go to kind of the first thing that they come up with, and often because they thought it, therefore they think it's a fact. Yeah.
So quickly that people make facts.
And especially in organizations, I think they think they get valued for having a quick answer, not thinking, and it's typically it could be off base. One of the things, especially we'll talk more about, is these assumptions. And Kathy and I know we have this one tool called the assumption ladder, and actually it's a takeoff of the ladder of inference. We
Mhm.
took the liberty of taking out a couple of rungs. And so if you go to my website, drrellinadler.com, there's more information on some of the tools and the leadership keys. One is this assumption ladder, which allows questions to walk people down off the ladder. And they just are able, and I think like you're saying, they're more engaging with people and people
Yes.
got good ideas.
Yes.
Well,
So
I was going to say we're going to go to a quick
go
break.
ahead.
Just hold that thought. Let's make sure everybody knows how to reach Deborah. www. Deborah Naish, DeborahNaish, Naish.com. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about how do we get beyond what I love to call that already always listening. I already know. So come right back. Don't go away. You're listening to Leadership Development News.
Welcome back to Leadership Development News, Profiles and Practice of Top Performers. You know, if you see us on YouTube, Kathy has our book, Emotional Brilliance, in her background, and there you can get that on audio and also from Amazon. So you can hear a little bit more about some of the models that we have in there. And obviously, we're a fan of curiosity, and we just left that off before the break. And one of the things that Deborah says, remember, it's all information. And so, why is that a game changer?
Mhm. So this is another practice for curiosity, in addition to the ones that we just talked about. And it's a game changer because if you give yourself space to see what happened or didn't happen as revealing something about another person, a situation, or yourself, you can shift your response. You move from being reactive and triggering kind of that amygdala hijack to seeing like, oh, this is just giving me information. I'm going to give you a quick story so see if it can make sense. So just recently, a couple weeks ago, a client called in kind of a panic um, to clients, to my clients work at an organization, had been working a ton of extra hours on a program they were involved in. It involved some community members, and they were furious about what a more senior leader did that was going to screw up their plans. So they had been asked by senior leaders to do something, and then somebody stepped in and they did something that was going to screw up their plans. They were so upset. It was like over the top, and they were ready to quit. Like somewhere between quit the project and quit the job. It was that kind of exaggerated response. They took time to feel their feelings. That's another one of my foundational practices that I talk about. And remember, okay, this is all information. And take the time to ask, how else could I look at this? What was happening for that other leader? What could we do now? And what will we do differently? So they were able to walk away from the edge, find some next actions to take, recognize that things didn't go as planned and they could adjust. So that ability to shift from reaction to, okay, how am I going to deal with this is important. And remembering it's all information is kind of the three words that help you reset. So how does that
So give us
resonate
those
for you
three
guys?
words. Yeah, give us those three words.
It's all information.
It's all info level.
Yeah.
So something happens, I don't like it. And can I find a way to just say, okay, that's information. That's telling me what's important to you, really, because you are upset about something. So I'm like, okay, that's giving me information. I don't
Yeah.
have to respond also upset back as my first inclination. I get an email. This is a big place where it happens. In a lot of my coaching, somebody will talk to me about how upset they were at the email that someone sent. And when we help them take a breath, read it
Right.
again, and look at it with a different set of eyes
Yeah.
and say, it's all information. What is this telling me? Versus taking it personally versus overly reacting. And it, my clients, after practicing this, frequently
Right.
find that it's the tool that helps them just shift from being
Yeah.
reactive to responsive.
You know, it reminds me of something that I learned a long time ago that I still use to this day. And you said it so beautifully, Deborah. I used to write emails, and Relly will smile when he hears this. And it was always just for the transaction.
Mhm.
And what I learned was before I send an email, look at the words, see what the words are informing people of. Can they be in a different order so that they're not creating friction or conflict? And can you step away from them in your kind words, right? It's just give the information, take out the emotion, fewer words are better, and you can still get to the end point, but do it with kindness.
When you're writing, if you could be aware of it when you're actually doing the writing, that's
Right,
even better.
exactly. But what that does is it helps you to do what you just described, which is if you're receiving emails
Yeah.
and you're writing them with that intention, you might be able to step away from the words long enough to see, as you beautifully said, the person, the sender's feelings. What is the sender really speaking to, right? Being the coach and hearing beyond what's being said and recognizing you got to process a little bit of pain here for that person, as you did so beautifully with that client call about that person who is going to ruin everything.
You've been there, right? And it's normal. Like it's okay to have those reactions. I talk about shortening the time between that reaction and a response that is going to take you to where you need to go.
And I think that's where this sense of autonomy, agency, power, influence, I mean, all the key words that we all want happens in the gap.
Yeah.
And most of us don't create a gap. And so in the work that I do, always say, if you stay on autopilot, which we all are, you stay average. And so all three of us are coaches with people. Nobody wants to be average, but
Right.
sometimes it's really saying, okay, we're wired to be on autopilot. And so it doesn't take long. I mean, often I would say 15 seconds and asking the right questions in that pause, you can have a better response. You can bring out your emotional intelligence. And so there was sense of that's the awareness piece in your model,
Yes.
and being aware of what's going on for you.
Yes. Yeah. Quick story on that awareness piece. So, someone who read my book, who's now retired, but had been in some senior level roles and does a lot of volunteer work in nonprofits, she read the book. And when she got to the part I talk about automatic mode versus awareness mode, kind of as you were saying, that kind of automatic space. And she had this realization, oh my gosh, that's how I am with my daughter, my adult daughter. I'm always in automatic mode. And just that moment to kind
Yeah.
of see that she saw it and she could make a shift. And she says it already has changed her relationship
Wow.
with her daughter. So sometimes it is just how can
Yeah.
we get better at remembering
Yeah.
that uh, we can have an automatic reaction, but we don't have to stay there.
Right.
And when you were just talking, you and Relly you were talking about it all happens in the gap.
Mhm.
You were saying, that's something that you like to use, right, as a metaphor. It all happens in the gap. That autonomy and agency and influence, right? That happens in the gap. And to the point you're making, Deborah, it's how we choose to respond. It's all information. It's how we choose to respond. And so it's interesting. So I had created a little acronym about the word gap, and it's global awareness and presence. So what happens in the gap, right? What happens is we create global awareness and presence, no matter where we are or who we're with, for others and ourselves, when
Yes.
we are present with ourselves in that gap. So it's fascinating, right? We're all talking about the same thing, yet we come to it from just a little bit of a different way. And I love this for our audience, because our audience is so rich and diverse, and they're always looking for deepening, growing, and learning. And I think the more ways we can take a concept
Yeah.
and reframe it for people, the
Mhm.
better we're going to get. I just want to make sure everybody knows how to get to you, Deborah. It's Deborah Naish, Naish home.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Kat, did you just come up with that gap?
No, it's something that I had put together
Oh,
for
okay, good.
my coaching class.
I
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Well, let me just
They
share one more.
kept saying, what is a gap? You keep talking about
That's
being in a gap.
beautiful. Well, let me share one more tool about the gap, and then we'll go. Deborah, we're going to ask you about embracing resistance. So I have this tool called the emotional audit, 15 seconds to a better response.
Mhm.
And so it's creating a gap and it's asking these strategic questions. So you take a breath and you ask number one, what am I thinking? And you just notice what's happening. Notice. And then number two, what am I feeling? You do a body scan. You kind of see what's going on in your body. Maybe you name the feeling. Number three. And so number one is about meta attention. Number two is about meta awareness. Number three is about meta attention. And meta attention is, what do I want now? Just that question activates the executive function. What do I want now? Where am I putting my attention? That's number three. Number four is one of the key ones. How am I getting in my own way? And so, and notice what happens. I'm talking too fast. I'm not listening. I'm interrupting. Number one, thinking. Number two, feeling. Number four, how am I getting away? Ideally, reveals a pattern.
Mhm.
That's not the only time. And then obviously number five, again, 15 seconds. Number five is, okay, I got data. I got information. What do I need to do now to be my best? 15 seconds, you're going to have a better response in the gap. So maybe, Deborah, give me your sense of that, and then we'll ask you about some of your tools around embracing resistance.
Yeah, I think that's great. I wrote it down. It's kind of in that same genre of, can we just get better at having a few questions that
Yes.
help us reset? You mentioned
And,
part of my book has core questions. I have 4 questions, and they're in this same genre. That when you can do that, I think that you change how you're being in the world, how you're
yeah.
being a leader. So I love it.
So say a little bit about that embracing resistance and before our next break.
Okay, so one of the areas before I wrote a book, and I had never even planned to write a book, so still kind of amazed that I have written a book. But I was spending a lot of time looking at resistance and have this practice called embrace resistance instead of resisting it. So think about you can go from pushback, like resistance, to energy and possibility. You can look at resistance as a signal rather than a stop sign. It's related to it's all information. So if we
Yeah.
put, excuse me, resistance in this category of another kind of information that we're experiencing, whether it's in ourselves, I'm resistant to doing something, or I'm feeling like you are saying to me, no, you're basically rejecting what I'm coming up with. And it leads to better solutions if we explore it. So I want to give you another personal story, a personal story here. In 2019, I was starting to take a course with Brian Johnson. I don't know if you know him. He has a program called the Heroic Platform, and author of a book called Arete. And is a coaching program. And part of it involved, it was a 8-month program, and part of it involved doing a Spartan race. So a Spartan race is a 5K race with 20 obstacles, including a lot of mud and a lot of climbing. And I'm a not athletic at all person. I was 61 years old at that time. And I wasn't going to do it. I'm like, well, I'm going to do everything else, but I'm not going to do that because it's so outside my comfort zone. And my son, who was 15 at the time, I was just telling him about what I was doing in this race, and he says, "Well, I'll do it with you." And so it was a shift from my resistance to an opening to like, okay, well, if he's going to do it with me, then I think that's going to be my opening. That's going to be my signal. And throughout the race, which I did, there's a lot of moments of resistance, but I kept going. So it is a place I talk a lot in the book about how you can just shift your relationship with resistance. It doesn't have to be something that stops you. And in another minute, I'll share a couple of tools with you. But how does that sound? Is
That
that
sounds
relevant for?
fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You know what? Let's do this. Let's jump in. Let's talk about some of those tools, and then we'll see where it takes us.
Okay. So one that is easy to remember uh, is how do you allow space for no is kind of the framework for it. So part of the way that we can be better at embracing resistance is both creating space to say no and to receive no. And so a tool for receiving no is what I call the three T's: Teflon, Tempur-Pedic, and Tornado. So if something's coming at you and you're feeling the sense that there's someone else is resisting, and it feels kind of like you could just roll with it. You can be okay that they're just saying no, and that's just where they are, and you can keep going. It's not really that intense. You can be like Teflon. If you feel like someone's saying no and they're like almost kind of punching you in the belly, you can feel like Tempur-Pedic in that sense that you're gonna feel the push. It smushes down, but it pops back up. So you can also be with it, but you're going to engage a little bit more. You need to explore what's happening. And the third T is tornado. Someone is basically having a little tantrum. They're kind of spinning. This is not really the time to continue engaging. That's a tornado and probably time to walk away. So the three T's:
Hmm.
how am I in this moment? What's my experience? Can I be like Teflon? Is this a Tempur-Pedic moment, or is this a tornado and I should walk away?
That's
I'm
beautiful.
I'm
We
seeing
we
a giant marshmallow here.
A Tempur-Pedic marshmallow.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
we love the acronyms, and that's a good one. It just allows people to, in the moment, take the gap, pause, and say, "What do I need to do now?" And then now you're being a little more descriptive
Right.
of each of those. And so the one that you really kind of step away is a tornado then.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's not time to engage. Somebody is really super resistant. It may be you just like, okay, you planted a seed and you're going to have the conversation at another time.
Yeah,
That's okay. You don't have to push. Doesn't always have to be pushing.
right.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. So I'm going to say it's a Tempur-Pedic break.
Yeah.
It's going to bounce right back here after this commercial break. Don't go away. You're
Love
listening
that.
to Leadership Development News.
Welcome back to Leadership Development News, profiles and practice of top performers. We're talking with a top performer, to many top performers, CEOs, and the executive coaching, Deborah Naish. Deborah Naish, Naish is NAISH.com. And we're talking about her new book, Level Up Your Leadership, Becoming More Conscious, Courageous, and Resilient. And you can see already she's got some really great tips and tools. One of them you talked about: complaints don't have to be barriers, they can be bridges. What do you mean with that?
So we as humans complain. It's kind of in part of our nature. And it's pretty automatic. We've been talking earlier about what are our automatic reactions. So, want to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we stop complaining, but this is about reframing the kinds of complaints that are consistent and persistent so that we don't stay in that complaint stage
Mhm.
and we shift more to tapping into our personal agency. So complaints are showing us unmet needs. They're showing us something that's not working. Again, it comes back to something I mentioned earlier about it's all information, part of the curiosity
Yeah.
process. So, what's the complaint telling us, and how can we reframe it? Think about how often do you yourself perhaps say, I certainly have, there's nothing to do, it's just how things are. Like we're not going to be able to change. It's common for many of us, and that happens. I hear that from my clients or other kinds of complaints. They don't include us, they're not respecting us. The process is broken. So when we can help ourselves or help others shift that complaint and reframe it to, well, what is it? What if it's true? What if they're really feeling that we're not including them? What is true about that? What could we look at differently? What actions could we take? And you can take any complaint and use it as a bridge to an opportunity. Shift it from complaint to action. And on my website, I have a handout, free handouts you can download called Shift from Complaint to Action. That gives you some steps to do that.
Yes, thank you. When you think about where this conversation is, Deborah, and what you want to make sure our audience is getting before we say goodbye, what's top of mind for you?
Key things are that you can really make small shifts and have a big impact, have a lasting impact. A lot of the work that you do, the emotional brilliance, emotional intelligence work, is about becoming more aware. And that's the first step to making shifts. And there's other things that you can do. Be more curious. Remember, it's all information. Embrace resistance. Some of these are small shifts over time, they'll have a big impact. And that feels key to me is it doesn't always have to be complex. It doesn't have to be a model. It doesn't have to be that big to make a big difference. And with that, you can really be and do more than you think you can. There's more possibilities you can see. You can remember that you have personal agency. I can share a quick story. I have, unfortunately, a few clients right now who have cancer, and it's depressing and sad and hard. And all of them have recognized that the shifts that they've made while we were focused on changes for them in their workplace are invaluable as they move through their health journey. Taking time to pause, to be curious, to check assumptions, to be another one we haven't talked about, but to be 100% in and unattached to the outcome. And it's as their coach and friend, it's been a privilege to be supporting them through this journey.
So that goes to, we didn't really talk as much, your key essentials. We talked about awareness, curiosity is acceptance. And it sounds like that's, accepting what you don't want. And
Yes.
it kind of also piggybacks on complaints. But so
Yes.
say a little bit more about kind of any tools and tips. And then let me just say, at the end of it, each chapter, Deborah's got some specific things that you can do. And both, Kathy and I, we love that because I think that's what our clients want. Okay, good. I understand the concept, but what should I do? So anything about acceptance that you want to pass on?
Yeah. Acceptance is a big one, and is it's universal. It's not necessarily something that we talk about so much in
Right.
leadership, but I feel like is this essential piece of being able to accept the current reality as it is. I talk about it by saying what is. And Byron Katie has work in this area. So do
Mhm.
others. If you can have whatever feelings you have, whatever reactions you have, and be with them, but then get really clear. Okay, what is the reality? In this case, I have cancer. I don't know where it's going to lead. And how am I going to live my life now? What choices am I going to make? That becomes important. And we don't have to have an illness to move into acceptance. We
Right.
can do it in everyday things. We're going to have a layoff. I don't like it. And people are upset and spinning. Okay, what am I going to accept about that? I don't like this policy that happened. There's so many places in the workplace that people push back on that resistance. But once you get to the place, I can accept it, and now what? Accept doesn't mean roll over and ignore anything else.
That is very powerful, Deborah. And as somebody who in the last 2 years, now going on 3 years, is a breast cancer
Yeah.
survivor, I think it was the best and the worst thing that could have happened. And I think when you horribilize with people to the extent you just demonstrated, what can people actually stretch around so that they can understand what the worst thing is that they might be able to accept. And because it's not there and it's not the current reality, they can flex, because now you're giving them the time and the space and creating that flexibility by walking that conversation with them and getting it out of their head.
Yeah.
That's right.
Taking the box of stuff and seeing what it takes to accept and create acceptance. And so you're actually providing a really great bridge for the possibility of something they thought they couldn't accept.
Right.
That's a beautiful thing. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Kat, you just said it so well also, and Deborah, I think what we all do is allow people to get their thoughts, their feelings on the examination table.
Yes.
Because if it's in their head, they're not examining. If anything, they're exaggerating. And so we want to go from exaggeration into examining, and then a little bit of the reality testing that you're saying, and the empathy to just say, yeah, that it does. It sucks. It's really bad. Let's talk about that. And then when it's right, to move them to an action. You don't want to do it too quick.
Right.
But now they got choices because it's their thoughts are on the examination table.
Such a big deal. I mean, that is so key. I find that is one of the main things that I do with clients and friends is get it out of your head.
Yeah.
Kind of just, to get it on that examination table, as you said. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So we're coming to the end here, Deborah. And so let's kind of highlight, anything else you want to make sure that we kind of walk away with, and like, I know Kat and I, we have Emotional Brilliance, and Kat's got a series of books. I got them. Like, what's the favorite part of your book?
Ooh, favorite part of my book. I'm a little attached to all of it.
Of course. Yeah, I know.
Uh, favorite part of my book is going to be the last chapter where I talk about be unattached to the outcome.
Okay.
And part of me struggled with whether that should be the last chapter since it was kind of my favorite, but it just flowed better that way. But along with kind of it's all information, if you can recognize that there's a lot we want in our lives and go for it, go all in, go for it, but not be attached to the way that I think it needs to be in the moment that I say that, so that there are so many other options. It takes away from all the stress of not having it work out the way I want it to. And you can keep going. You can find other ways. So that's one of my favorite pieces of the book.
And I think that's such a beautiful place for us to end today, because it gives everyone a gift to release themselves from the pressure of exhausting oneself with constant assumptions and expectations
Yes.
that are so likely to be unmet. And we know from our work, right, Relly, with wonderful people like Rudy Tanzi and Deepak Chopra, that stress is really unmet expectations. So we'll reduce our stress when we let go of the outcome.
Yeah. And we can still have the wants and desires, but it may not show up the way we say, and we can keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And this is what I love about this, Deborah. You have many, many gems, and as Kat, you and I was thinking the exact same thing. You don't know how many times I've passed on what Rudy Tanzi said, co-author with Deepak Chopra, Super Brain, Super Genes, on Leadership Development News. What is stress? unmet expectations. And when you can say something in, 4 or 5 words, and some of the things that you said, I think, Deborah, really resonates also. It's just information, which I do think allows someone to breathe and look at it with more of the executive functioning versus the emotional network that sometimes can lead us astray. And with that breath, we can maybe analyze it, talk about it, share it. And it just opens up another big word you said, space. Space to look at it differently.
Yeah, thank you. It's been delightful to be here with the two of you and have this conversation. Thank you so very much.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for writing this amazing book, and congratulations. And thank you to our amazing audience of 20 years for tuning in to tune up your performance with leadership development news. Relly, anything you want to say?
I think we said it. Thank you, folks. Well, we'll see and hear you next week. We're glad we're on YouTube now. So now you don't only have to hear Kathy's voice or my voice, but now you can actually see us. And hopefully it's an easy sight for you. All right. Take care, folks.
Thank you.